got video right there, so.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Hey, good evening, I'm Jeff Bellamy, I'm the attorney for Center Township, and I've been with you at all the hearings thus far, and I've been working with the two participants, the town of Danville and Center Township, on these discussions and public hearings concerning the possibility of the township and the town creating a fire territory. This is our third and final public hearing, and we will have a fourth meeting. It will not be a public hearing, and that will be the time where the units get together again on March 19th. That will be back at the town hall. That will be at 5:30 p.m. And that will be for the purposes of either of the two units asking any questions of each other, asking questions of me, asking questions of the chief or the department, or asking questions of our fiscal advisors. Any questions or issues they might have, any questions or statements they want to make, and then we'll look for them for motions on whether or not they wish to consider approval of this possible territory. Unless either of the two units object, I know my client has a quorum, and I believe the town has a quorum, so just unless you want to do it yourself, I will note that we've got a quorum of both units, and we'll call the joint meeting of the Center Township and Center Township Board and the Danville Town Council to order. Just as place setting, I want to do a quick introduction for those that have not been at the first two sessions of what it is we're trying to consider. And that is the possibility of creation of what's called fire protection territory. And Indiana Code permits existing local units to enter into a contract that's called an interlocal agreement. And for fire protection territories, it's to provide fire or EMS together rather than as separate units. Right now, these two participants operate under just a general contract for the administration of fire, but it doesn't have all of the benefits or possibilities that a fire protection territory and that statute would provide. They also collaborate for mutual aid with other units. This isn't a fire district. It's different. Fire district, and sometimes when we say territory and district, those words get crossed and they're not the same thing. The district's created by county commissioners, either on their own or a petition is given to the commissioners, and they would consider whether or not a district is formed. And it's its own special unit of government and has its own tax authority and its own fire trustees. We're not doing that here. I just want to kind of draw a distinction between the two of those things. Once the commissioners form something like that, the two individual units wouldn't necessarily have any say over its operation or who gets to be on those boards. What this process is to present to the residents and to both of the units of the participating units needs and impacts of the collaboration between the two on fire and EMS and making sure the services are equitably provided among the units. Can you put some space up? And just to have more equitable and reliable outcomes. Really, you take a look around in your community and it's growing. This is kind of the underlying theme. As your community is growing, it's the next outline exurb in the metro, and that march of development's coming your way. How do you get ready for it? Are you ready for it? Will this help you get ready for it? Territories are locally controlled, be locally controlled by the two participants. It wouldn't be operated by the county or the state. It'd be operated by executive board that's composed of representatives that would be from both of the units, and it would be responsible for assisting on fire department administration, all first response, fire and EMS, equipment planning, any debt. We don't have any debt plan, but any debt would have to be considered, the budgeting year over year, education, community outreach, code inspection, department personnel and discipline, fundraising grants, and real estate planning. So as far as meeting direction is concerned, the Citizens Council and the board will hear two main presentations. The first is going to be presented by Chief Duncan and his staff concerning the need of the territory, current state of the department, run volumes, equipment needs, and the expected outcomes if this is approved. The second presentation is going to be from Mickey Bell and Reagan Eakins from Reedy Financial Group concerning property taxes, income taxes, budgeting, and financial impacts. Why are we presenting these two presentations and the way we're doing it, the code requires. That's what the Indiana Code requires to be presented in all three sessions. If you're coming to this, having this be your first meeting or your first public hearing in this process, you might be concerned, well, what did I miss the first two times? Not much. You missed the exact same thing that we're going to put on the night. This is a same presentation we'll put in on each time. The only thing different would be the questions that might have been asked at those sessions. But the financial materials and my portion and Chief's portion are essentially the same. If you've come tonight to find out what the outcome is, well, I'm sorry, it's going to be a little bit anticlimactic. There's no vote tonight. There has to be a waiting period between the final public hearing and the vote. The vote, as I mentioned, is going to be on the 19th over at the town hall, 5:30. We will not make these presentations at that time, but we'll have time for questions from the two bodies. We will not be taking public comment at that time. So what we'll do is we're going to get these two presentations completed. We've got a little more sign up than we've had in the past, a little more attendance than we've had in the past. My hope is that we'll get everybody's comments and questions answered, but we will set a testimony limit of 3 minutes. And if you need more time and we end up with more time, we'll try to figure out how to accommodate it. But there's another meeting that's set for 7 tonight for the council. So we don't want to make them too late. And if you've got questions, or if you can't get to tonight, or if you're like me, you leave a meeting or you're going somewhere else, you're like, oh, I should have asked that, or I thought of something, you can drop an email to the township, the town, or the chief, and we'll try and get you an answer as best we can on your question, either through the department, the CPAs, or myself. So without any further delay, I'm going to pass this over to Chief Rick Duncan.
Thanks, Jeff. For those of you that don't know, my name is Rick Duncan, and I am your fire chief. Those that do know me, I can talk a lot, so in order to stay on track, I've got a prepared speech, and then we're going to go into the actual presentation. So first, I want to thank Madison and Will for setting the place up again, and I want to thank Trustee Wright for letting us use this fine facility at no cost to the taxpayers. I just want to say that. So good evening. I stand before you tonight to highlight an urgent issue facing Center Township and the town of Danville: the critical need for additional firefighters in our fire department. When I took this job 20 months ago, our department was already critically behind. Our community grew at an average of 9% in the last 3 years, and the fire department has not grown. In the proposed 2025 budget, we were unable to secure enough funding necessary to properly expand our firefighter workforce, and this is jeopardizing the safety of our community. We have an aging fleet. We currently operate 7 vehicles that are well past their lifespan, and that also presents an additional safety issue. Without these additional resources, our fire department will continue to brown out Station 191. And so that was one of the frequently asked questions. That means we shut the doors and close it, and nobody's responding to that firehouse because we lack the proper personnel numbers in order to make that happen. So what that really means to you is during high demand, that station is forced to close temporarily. And this is not just a logistical nightmare, it's a matter of life and death. As our community grows, so too do the demands placed on the fire service. We rely on our firefighters to be there in our moments of greatest need, whether it's fighting a fire, responding to medical emergencies, or protecting our property and lives. Without the proper funding for additional staff, we're putting the safety of everyone in this community at risk. I urge you to recognize the gravity of this situation. The well-being of Center Township and the town of Danville depends on a fully staffed, fully capable fire department. The only financial fix is a fire territory. We cannot afford to leave our stations, our firefighters, and our community vulnerable. It is time to invest in our future, ensure the protection of our families, and provide our dedicated firefighters with the support they need and deserve. Thank you, and again, I'm honored to be your fire chief. So 745-4180, 9001 is my extension. I said this at the last meeting. If you got questions, call me. I'll meet you for coffee. Come to the office. I've got all this information. We're completely transparent here, and you can call me anytime, and I'll try to answer your questions. Like I said, we can meet in person. If you want to look at all the numbers and everything, we can do that as well. So if there's anybody that doesn't feel like standing up and asking a question, by all means, please give me a call. Okay, so Alex Brand, he's the Deputy Chief of Operations. He's going to get up and give basically the state of the department, where we are and where we need to be. Chief.
Good evening, Deputy Chief Alex Brand. I haven't been with Danville for very long, so back in October, I talked to some people. I got hired in November, so I'm only a few months in. But I'll let you know what I've done. A lot of data, years and years worth, a lot of Excel sheets, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of information. Dove all the way back into the history, and that's where we're going to start today. Who likes history? Because I think to be able to move to the future, we have to know where we were in the past. So in a brief history, our earliest known documentation of a fire incident started in 1849. In 1869, a fire department became established. In 1878, we appointed our first fire chief. In 1900, Danville purchased a hose cart. A hose cart was something that was pulled by hand when firefighters ran to the scene or ran to the fire station. They grabbed this cart and they ran to the fire. Today, in 2025, we still call it a run because that's what they did. They ran with the hose cart. Later on, we went to a Model T Ford truck. This is in 1913. In 1938, a petition was signed to be able to purchase a $3,000 fire truck. Can you guess fire trucks no longer cost that today? It's got a few extra zeros on the back. However, I want you to try to remember 1938 because in 1953, we purchased another pumper for $17,000. At the time, the state gave a grant for $6,500. Guess what? Those grants are no longer available either. So that's our history lesson for Danville Fire. Today, we're continuing to make history, hopefully moving forward and making the territory our next steps. Operational readiness. We talk about a decrease in number of volunteers from the past decade. 2020 reached an all-new low. The National Volunteer Fire Council released a research. It said run volumes tripled in 2020, and our personnel that volunteered decreased. So with that created additional full-time gaps between the volunteer or part-time positions. So we have less people. Lack of funding for apparatus and equipment is something we're getting ready to talk about with apparatus or operational readiness. And then fire station number and locations. Let's start with an OSHA mandate. Everybody likes to go with OSHA first, right? We have to make sure that number is out there. So what it states is basically for every 2 firefighters that are inside a fire, I need to have 2 firefighters on the outside. That is for personal protection and personal safety. Respiratory protection also goes in there. With the 2 workers in, you're able to go in, rescue, pull somebody out in the event of an emergency. So I just want to make sure you know that there is an OSHA standard that mandates this. And now we're going to talk about NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, 1710. And this describes staffing levels. So staffing levels will respond with a minimum of 4 persons on each apparatus. They will respond within 4 minutes to an incident. The correct number of fully staffed, strategically located fire stations is the only way to accomplish this task. Here in a few minutes, I'm going to show you some maps. I'm going to show you factual data. This is data that's longitude, latitude. Every run we make in this territory is tracked with longitude and latitude. From there, we import it into a computer program. That computer program puts a pinpoint in, and we can see exactly where our incidents are. Because people are like, well, that was just for a year. I went back 2 years, just so you know. So we're almost at 5,000 incidents, and you can see us tracking of where we're going. The first engine needs to arrive within 4 minutes. A second engine needs to arrive in 6 minutes. Low, medium hazards, what they consider an alarm within 8 minutes, and within 10 minutes and 10 seconds for any high hazard. What's a high hazard? A school, a hospital. You have to have this equipment to be able to mandate and to fulfill those needs. Again, 1710, currently, if you're unaware, right now Danville has 6 personnel assigned per shift. 6. On average response time right now in 2024, our average response time is 8 minutes and 56 seconds. And I'm going to show you again on a map. Don't panic. That's not everyone. That's a very vague number, and you're going to see the amount of times that takes place. With proper staffing, the safety and efficiency of the operation of our fire scenes. Again, when we get the proper amount of people, we'll do the proper work. With proper work, this is what we're talking about. This right here is a normal structure fire within Hendricks County, Marion County, and the surrounding counties. We're all set up very similar. 3 engines, 2 ladders, a medic truck, a battalion chief, possible safety car. If it goes working, we get more pieces of apparatus. We're all the same. We're all standardized, and it's across the board. Currently, right now, Danville has, on a typical day, 1 engine and 1 medic. We're doing everything we can this year to staff and pay overtime and to try to get fill in to staff 1 engine, 1 ladder, and 1 medic. So we're not even to where we need to be to be self-sufficient within ourselves. Let's talk about what these positions do. So an engine, obviously, right now, as you'll see, we have 5 people. On a common day for us in Danville, we run 3 people on an engine and 3 people on, or 3 personnel on a ladder. So we run 3-3. So when you count down, you're going to have a driver, which obviously runs that piece of apparatus. You're going to have the officer. This is the person that's going to make the tactical decisions. Where are we going to place our truck? Where are we going to pull our hose? Where are we going to do? Where's our people? How are we going to get there? What are the things we're going to do? And then you have the nozzle firefighter. That's the person that's self-explanatory, right? They're going to grab that nozzle. They're going to grab the hose. They're going to stretch it and find the fire with the assistance of somebody else. Everybody should know that this is not an easy task as a nozzle firefighter. These aren't garden hoses. These are 1 3/4 hose, which are about 2 inches in diameter, weigh about 50 pounds per section. We have 4 sections. Not easy to move. Even more difficult when it's mud, terrain, uphill, adverse weather. The second firefighter, if there's 4, then that's an irons firefighter. They're going to assist with forcing a door, forcible entry, getting things prepared, and assisting that other firefighter. So there's a lot of steps that are taking place on an engine when we arrive. Again, this is standard riding positions all the way across really the nation, but definitely across Hendricks, Marion, and all the donut counties. This is how we perform our jobs 95% of the time. The truck company, also known as a ladder. Again, now you have a ladder. You have the operator or the driver. You have a chauffeur. Yeah, that's again, the person that operates that ladder. You have the officer again. You know, assist with making tactical decisions, but then you have that officer and a third person, which is this is the piece of equipment that does search and rescue. So I don't know if you're aware, but when you sleep, do you know your senses shut off? You know that's why we have smoke detectors in our house, right? Because when we're awake, we can see smoke. But when we're asleep, your senses are shut down. That's why we have smoke detectors. That's to wake us up. That's to alert us. Why do we find people in homes that are unconscious because of smoke inhalation or because something bad happened? When we say because they had no actively working smoke detector. It's important to have smoke detectors, right? Because that is what's going to wake you up. The can firefighter, the 4th person. This person's taking in actually a water can, a water extinguisher. So as they're starting to go down a hallway, like in your house, they're going to go down a hallway and a fire's in the bedroom and that bedroom door's open and fire's coming out of it. They're going to go up, spray some water, and hopefully be able to reach in and shut that door to bypass it to go on until that hose line can get in play, right? Because now if this engine only has 3 people, they're going to be slower, right? Because if I had 4 and 5 people on it, I could be really quick. There's all kinds of studies and data that shows the speed of which firefighters can move with more people, obviously. Moving on to the second engine. So a second engine arriving, they're going to do exactly pretty much what the first engine does, only they're going to come in a different direction. They're going to grab what's called a second water supply. They're going to pull a backup line or a second line, second protection line. Reason for a second protection line, what did we talk about, the 2 in, 2 out? Everybody remember that? Yeah, so when I have 2 people in, I have 2 people out, I need to make sure that they are protected with the second line. If something happens, if the ceiling falls down or something collapses or something gets really, really hot really quick, that backup line can go in and use that as protection. And then the last thing, we have a medic. We always respond to medical on all of our fires. Again, key responsibilities. Number 1, life and safety, right? Let's take care of our lives. So patient assessments, firefighter rehab, All of our trucks are advanced life support, and then managing injuries of firefighters due to the operations. It seems like almost on a lot of runs, you'll get a cut, you'll get something in somebody's eye, you'll get some soot somewhere. So that's what what they're for. And then the last thing is the chief officer. Key responsibilities are established command. So what a command is that is just like a football team. He's the quarterback, he or she is the quarterback. They're making the calls for what the plays are going to do. We have what's called standard orders of arrival in all of our counties, again, all the way around in Hendricks and Marion County. Those orders of arrival establish what the first engine does, second engine does, third engine. We already know what we're doing. This individual is coordinating it and making the strategic plans, assuring allocation, tactical decision-making, communicating with all of the companies. This person's responsible for all the actions that take place on that fire ground. When we look at Danville, how many did I say that we had in service? One engine and one medic. All right. So we're trying to get our levels up. As the community grows, so does our manpower. We call it manpower. So does our personnel. Deployment goals, when we start looking at our numbers over the 5 years, in 2025, we were shooting for 8 people. In 26, 11, 27, 14, 17, and 19. We're not trying to just dump a bunch of people and go, well, we just need 34 people on shift, each one. We're financially responsible, we're fiscally responsible, and we see what the needs are. We understand what the needs are, and we don't want to just put anything in a burden. We're trying to make it work with everyone involved to be able to increase our personnel. Because if I don't have personnel, I can't get new apparatus. I don't need new apparatus if I don't have people. And I can't get new fire trucks because then I'll need fire stations. Well, eventually all this is going to have to come. Our growth in Danville and Center Township in our area is here. Washington Township is growing. It is coming. Everything from the east, as we know. If you don't live in Danville, I live in Avon. I was with Avon when there was a single flashing stoplight at 267 and 36. That's how long I've been there. It's grown. It's continuing to come this way. It is not going to divert around us. It's going to continue its path. For forecasting for residential growth, they put basically one firefighter per 100 or 1,000, and that equates to basically 1.87 for your population is what it should be. Let's talk a little bit about capital improvement. So standard model for apparatus placement again. When you look at a fire engine, that's the just regular ones that put out the water. That's a 10 years and then it goes into a reserve. So it's about a 15-year piece. Can you get a little bit more? Yeah, absolutely. A little bit. Depends on the amount of run load. So let's talk about a Danville engine for real quick. Because we're only running one station, we're only running one engine. That is getting all of the miles put on it. As of right now, I believe engine 192 has just over 80,000 miles. What do we do when we start getting high miles on our vehicles? We start being cautious with it, right? Which, don't trust me, they're cautious with our fire trucks. However, you start getting more maintenance cost involved with it. Because now you're going in for a simple oil change. Well, guess what? Now it's a transmission fluid that they're going to have to change. Now there's a front end brake problem, right? The only thing they don't do to us, I'm going to make a joke, everybody ready? They don't tell us we have to replace the cabin filter because we don't have cabin filters. So thank you. That's the first time in all the presentations I got to get a lot of it. All right, a ladder is a 15-year, again, going with 5 to 20. A tanker is 15 years across the board, grass truck. And a grass truck is just something like a pickup truck. We can replace those easily. And a medic truck. Our medic trucks get a lot of miles. They're the busiest piece in our area, obviously. So those go 5 years. They go in a reserve for 5 years, then they get replaced. So how do we accomplish this? So right now when we start looking, this is our current frontline apparatus or fire engines for Danville Fire Department. When you start looking, right now I have a tanker truck that is in service at 32 years. I have a ladder truck that's 28 years old, a grass truck that's 24, an engine, which is in the backup, is 21 years old. When you look at the red, those are all way past due. All right, so what I did was I listened to the questions that people had, and I changed the slide just a little bit. I didn't take anything out, I added to. So now you can see the frontline year dates that these should be replaced. 2008, 2012, 2011, 2014. That's the lifespan. Replacement years, the 2008, 2017. So you can see we still have some good apparatus. I'm not saying we have to replace our entire fleet at once. We have apparatus or equipment, fire trucks, that are 32 years old. I wish I could replace them every 5 or 6 years like other entities, but I can't. I have to be able to keep our frontline apparatus and equipment. Again, these are life-saving pieces of equipment. We've established a plan to purchase the apparatus, and the only way to really get this accomplished is with a fire territory. If you look, we put together numbers and we put together options. So basically right now, to get an engine, ladder, and tanker, these are not hypothetical numbers. These are not forecasted numbers. These are factual numbers from the manufacturers. They gave me a quote, I have them in writing, and this is the actual plan for them. And this plan simply states that, one more click, I could purchase apparatus for $2,946,000. You're like, wow, that's a lot. It is a lot. Do you remember back in 1938 and 1953, remember the price of fire apparatus then? Went from $3,000 to $17,000. Do you know what happened then? Price increase, right? Basically 17.46%. Guess what they're doing today? From 2020 to 2024, apparatus has increased 45%. When COVID hit, it hit the manufacturers. All the manufacturers shut down. When it started back up, it was, okay, we're needing pieces, so it's going to put a delay on some of the builds for fire trucks. Unfortunately, what took place was now we're back up to speed, but now it went from, well, we don't have the parts, to now there are so many fire trucks being built and ordered because of the delays that now instead of normal people ordering one, now they're ordering 2, 3, and 4 pieces. So it used to be a supply issue, now it's a demand issue. So when we start looking, that's 11.25%. So if we were to purchase this apparatus today, that 2.9 million, and we decide, yeah, we're just going to continue to do what we're doing. We're not going to do anything for 5 years. You just increased the price of that truck, $2,074,000. Again, factual numbers. Those are the replacement costs in 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Capital improvement for fire stations, deciding the future. How do we know where the locations are? Well, we use a neat little program called heat mapping. Again, I kind of alluded to it earlier a little bit, and we track every incident by longitude, latitude, and all this is data driven. You have to understand with data in anything, there's an element of error. It's about 5%. How do you know it's 5%? Because I think I had one in Dublin, England. We had a run there. When it puts it on the map, all of a sudden you see like a little dot over here. And you're like, I'm pretty sure we never went overseas on a run. So there's a very, very small handful, minute of that. So what happens is it actually puts these little circles or puts markers on maps. This is just 2024. This is 2,230 incidents that we responded to in 2024. So when you see all of these circles, that's what it is. When we go to the next map, this right here is our station from 2023, 2024, 4,489 incidents that we responded to in a single firehouse, which is station 192. What that yellow polygon is that is 4-minute response times. This mapping program is used by government, it's used by large electrical companies, it's used by municipalities, it's used by a lot of Fortune 500 companies, because you can actually take it for mapping time and miles. So with the time involved and time included, what you see is the 113 or a 151 or 243, that stars are at station 192. You can see the amount of incidents that took place. That is a 4-minute response time. That is only one firehouse. This is why we need to get the second firehouse open. The only way to open the second firehouse is what? More people. I have to have more people. When we start looking at numbers, here again, factual numbers, 4,489 runs. Station 91, if it was closed, Station 192 would have covered 1,225 within 4 to 6 minutes, only 22% of the time. Anybody that has any medical knowledge knows that during a cardiac arrest, brain death occurs within 4 to 6 minutes. This is a 4-minute response time, 22% of the time. Summary of our national or our operational improvements is in 2025, we're hoping to get 8. By 2029, have 19 people on shift. Our area continues to grow. It is not going to slow down. It is not going to wait on us. Our apparatus needs, or we need fire trucks. We need ladder, we need a tanker, and we need equipment to be able to continue to move forward. So operationally, this ends my speech. I appreciate your time. As of right now, I'd like to introduce Reedy Financial. Reedy stands as a pillar of financial expertise and support, dedicated to empowering communities and organizations throughout strategic financial management. With robust portfolio, includes serving 215 local units, Reedy Financial has established a trusted partner in navigating the complexities of financial planning and budget preparation. Reedy Financial has a successful prepared budget for exceeding $4 billion, demonstrating a deep understanding of diverse financial landscape and the unique needs of the client. Moreover, Reedy Financial has played a pivotal role in assessing and assisting with debt issues for more than $825 million, ensuring local entities can secure financial funding to drive the growth and development. With over $2 billion capital funded, Reedy Financial not only fosters financial stability, but also invests in the future of communities it serves. I would like to turn it over this time to Reedy Financial.
Thank you for that introduction. My name is Reagan Eakins, again with Reedy Financial. We were hired to do the financial piece of this puzzle. So we're going to go through a couple of the key components of that. Now we'll start with talking about the projected budget, levy, and rate. When a fire territory is established, this is one of the cooler pieces to doing a territory. You get to set your property tax levy in the first year. So the way we kind of operate is we started with working with Chief and getting his budget and then seeing how much property tax levy we would need to fund that budget. So you can see on the screen, we have two funds, the general fund and the equipment replacement fund. The general fund, that's where the bulk of our funding will be made from. That's where our personal services, all of our salaries and benefits, wages, all of that comes from there. Supplies, other services, all of that is included within the fire territory general fund. The second fund is the equipment replacement fund. You just saw a great presentation of all of the capital expense needs within the fire department, and that's what the equipment replacement fund will be used for. Now, equipment replacement fund is strictly for capital. So the budgets on the left, those were provided by Chief. We kind of backed into how much levy would we need. The difference is some ancillary revenues there, CVET, vehicle, excise tax. I know there's fire contracts, EMS revenue, all of that goes into that. Once we have the levy needed, then we can kind of back into what the projected tax rate will be. I just want to note that we used a 5% assessed value growth when calculating that. Recently in this area, we've seen AV growth well over 9, 10, I think recently up to 20%. So we used a conservative model there. For the general fund, that tax rate is anticipated to be around 50 cents. And then the equipment replacement fund, that is a rate-driven fund that can only be 3 1/3 cents. So if the assessed value grows more, if it grows more than the 5% we're anticipating, that levy revenue, property tax levy revenue for the equipment replacement fund will go up, get more revenue, which means we'll have more money that we can fund some more of our capital. Next, we're going to talk about taxpayer impacts. We have two graphs here. The top one is a monthly impact. The bottom one is a yearly impact. So we broke it down by the 1%, 2%, 3% categories, the 1% being residential, 2% being agricultural, and 3% being commercial. So that's the column on the left. Next column is the assessed value. We kind of just did ballparks for these. But just for an example, if you look, for instance, at, let's say, a residential home worth $100,000 in the town of Danville, the taxing district is town of Danville, you would see a $9.89 impact to them monthly. And if you look at the chart below, it's just multiplied by 12, about $118 yearly. A commercial example, you had a $200,000 assessed value commercial property in Center Township. We're projecting that the monthly impact would be a little over $10, and then at the bottom chart, the yearly impact would be around $127. If you notice, residential, any property that's $250,000 or more in assessed value, they're already at their tax cap, so they will not pay any additional because of the fire territory. Agriculture, all 2% properties, they're already capped, so you won't see any impact because of the fire territory there. Moving down, talk about a little bit of circuit breaker. I know this has been a hot topic lately. The impacts below are solely based on the projected tax rate due to the fire territory expansion. When we did our analysis, the available information was in 2024. So this is all based off of 2024 circuit breaker. And to note, I know some of the town council members will remember this. We used, a couple years ago, we did a 10-year growth analysis for the town using a similar methodology that we used to calculate our circuit breaker. And then, we're using, for that analysis, I believe we had 2022 and 2023 information, and then projected out 10 years. We're only 2 years into that, but in 2025, we were within, I think, $3,000 of projecting the correct property tax revenue that the town would receive using similar methodology that we're using here. So we were actually 3,000 on the conservative side. And just to note, prior to our last meeting, we were given a separate analysis talking about some more impacts. And we tried to meet with another financial company. We couldn't get any further information from them. We could not validate anything that they came up with. So we went back in and we did a parcel by parcel analysis. When we did the parcel by parcel analysis, there was some updated 2025 information that we used. We also used some of the data from that study that we did a couple years ago to anticipate some growth. When we did the parcel by parcel analysis, the second time we found that our numbers were very similar to what they were the first time. So just wanted to add that note. We have done several other fire territories, including one that has, I think, 9 different units in it. And those have all been very successful as well. Next, let's talk about the income tax impact. Income taxes will not go directly to the fire territory. The additional revenue will be received by the participating units. So in this case, Center Township and Danville Civil Town. We did include all units that will receive property tax in our graph. The 2 columns in 2025, those are certified numbers. So you add those 2 together, that's what each unit will receive in 2025. the two kind of on towards the right, 2027, add those together, and you'll see what we are projecting the units to get in 2027. So there's a fire territory adjustment that allocates part of the fire territory levy back to all participating units within the fire territory. So because of that adjustment, you'll see a significant increase to Center Township and Danville Civil Town. There is a 1 year kind of delay in the way that they distribute lit. So we won't see an impact of that until 2027. And one other thing to note is we did use a 5% growth on the total lit pool for the whole county. We've seen historically it's been going up closer to 8, 9, 10%, but we wanted to stay conservative with that. And the last page, talking about still lit, but this is just public safety and economic development. These just go to the counties, towns, cities within the county. Again, it's only going to have a major effect or a major adjustment to anybody within the fire territory. So in this case, it'll only be Danville. So in public safety, Danville can anticipate approximately 62,000 of increased public safety shares in 2027. And then for economic development, they will see an increase just shy of 400,000. So that is all I have. Chief.
Thanks, Reagan. Just a couple of ground rules like we talked about, 3 minutes per person. We will let you know when the 3 minutes are up. If you decide you don't want to come up when I call your name, that's okay too. But before we get into that, I got to tell you something that's really important and why we need the staffing and a second firehouse. Right now, we can only do one run. People all the time beat us up on Facebook. Why is Avon here? Why is it? Because that's all we can do. So there was an incident at the high school last week. There was a student that has a peanut allergy that was exposed to peanuts, went into anaphylactic shock. At the time they called 911, our one station, because station 191 had to be closed that day because someone called in sick. So our engine and medic were on Main Street on a car accident. Medic 143 and engine 143 were dispatched to Danville High School. They responded from 36 and 267. Luckily, our people were able to finish up that car accident, and because they listened to the dispatch channel, they were able to pick up from that and get to the high school. It was still 11 minutes from the time of dispatch to the time they arrived. It doesn't account for the time they got to go inside and find out where the student is. It doesn't account for the 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes ahead of time for people to figure out, oh, wait, this person, something's wrong, right? And then we got to get to the nurse's office or get whatever. So when you hear response time, 8 minutes and 53 seconds, that's from the time that we received the call until the time we arrive. So when we say 8 minutes and 53 seconds, that could be 10 or 12 minutes, depending on what the front end delay is. So that's important to know. So anyway, if we had that second station open, we'd have been 3 minutes away to the high school. And again, luckily, there was an EpiPen involved, and that student was able to have the EpiPen. That's life-saving. If you know anybody, if you have kids that have allergies, it's a big deal. I wish we could have had that station open that day and responded from there. Luckily, it all turned out. But just like everything else, it's okay until it's not. So, all right, 3 minutes apiece. First up, I've got Douglas Ledgerwood. Oh, I forgot to say, you have to come up here because the law requires us to have it in front of the camera. So, sorry about that.
I got several questions, so I don't know whether we have enough time, but anyway. I would like to know if the state's doing something with the property relief bill, and I want to know if you've considered anything about that, or if it's going to impact any of your studies.
So again, that's the unknown, right? So at the end of the day, we have to live within the means of the budget that we're given, right? When Governor Mitch Daniels put the cap on at 1%, 2%, 3%, it was really difficult on us as a public entity to be able to support our budgets, but we made it work. And that is the unknown. I know right now that Senate Bill 1 has been gutted so much it's rarely even an effect. But again, no matter what they do, our problem of not having enough staffing and not being where we need to be in a timely manner to save your life is not going away, no matter what they do with taxes.
I guess I'd like to know, and maybe somebody else would, how did the fire department get this badly underfunded?
So for those of you who don't know how the system works here, and I can tell you that in my 35 years in this business, I've never, ever in my life seen a system set up like this. So there is an old contract where the town of Danville and Center Township have a contract for EMS protection. And in that, it states that there are certain positions within the fire department that Center Township pays half of their salary. There's some that they pay all of their salary. So it's really convoluted. What happens is, okay, this is the first part of March. Center Township's going to get a bill for February. So for all the money we spent on those people, depending on whether it's half or the whole, it doesn't matter. They'll send a bill and then they pay it. It goes into the general fund. So my budget, when you see that, the only thing that I have to control in the budget is the salary itself. Everything to the right, the benefits, the everything, the perf, all that stuff, that's all taken care of by the town. I can't give you exact numbers on billing because I'm not in that area. But for some people to say, hey, why was your budget $4 million or $3.9 million and now you want it to be $7 million? Well, there's over half of that budget that's paid by the town that I don't ever see and control. So it's really a convoluted system, and we've grown, but there's been no growth of the fire department. That's the biggest thing, right? So as we've grown and as the AV has gone up and as the money comes in, right, there should have been growth along the way. I'm not here to blame any of the past executive officers of the fire department. I just know that when I came in, we were so far behind, and it's critical, right? It's stuff that keeps me up at night. So I don't know if that really answers the question or not, but this should have started about 10 years ago, actually.
I guess, so we don't know, we have not a clue why we're underfunded. Well, let me ask you this next question. If you have doing the fire territory, what are the financial or operational advantage to fire territory versus adequately funding the present arrangement?
So right now, the way it's set up is if you live in Center Township outside of the municipality, your property tax or your fire tax is about 46 cents on the 100. And what that means is for every $100 that your house is valued at, you pay 46 cents towards a fire tax. The town of Danville does not have a fire tax. It's somewhere included in on the general fund, right? So we think it's about 20 cents, but we don't know for sure because the town of Danville collects a big amount of tax. It goes in the general fund and then here, here, and here. What I'm having to do now is when this pie gets split up and one entity comes in and takes 50% of the pie and everybody gets their little piece, and I'm fighting for crumbs off of the 24% over here. And it just, I have 14 bosses. If anybody else has ever worked for more than one person, you know how difficult that is. So this has to change. It needs to be one unified piece of government, and the territory does that. It gives you two people from the township, 2 people from the town, and 1 person at large that's not involved in any of it, to have a 5-person executive board that actually runs the territory. So it takes my bosses from 14 to 5.
It's really hard for me to understand.
Well,
I just
in the
don't
interest of
understand
time,
how
we'll
we
have
got so bad, and if why somebody didn't recognize it 10 years ago, to me, it's just very disappointing. And the last one the other gentleman spoke to was the school had a big disparity between the amount of money they think they'll lose versus the amount you say they'll lose. And can you explain to people why that is?
Okay, well, just to reiterate, we have 2 different financial entities, right? They're about $900,000 apart. The people we've hired who does the finances for the town, they've used numbers that came off of DLGF because it started in 2024. There were no 2025 numbers available. So it would be slightly different, not a huge difference. They've shared the formula, how they got there. Here's the factual. It all came from the Department of Local Government, right? It's all reported numbers from other entities. The other financial institution, when the two met, they didn't want to share their formula. They didn't want to share their numbers, where they got it from. It was told that it is we've been doing this for a while, and we use a trending model, and we do a by parcel analysis. That was the official statement from them. So I can't tell you why. I'd love to have the two of them sit down and say, well, we did, we added all this together. We got this. How did you do it? Right? And they say, well, we got it this way. Well, wait a minute. Maybe we did it wrong, or maybe you did it wrong. But we don't have that advantage, unfortunately.
The problem I have with that is that I can just see a few years later that the school's gonna come back and say, we need a referendum. We lost very much money, so much money for our territory. And that's just disappointing to me. Thank you very much, Keith.
Again, anybody wants to see the facts and figures, I have everything off of DLGF, whether it's the fire department or the school. I can give you those actual numbers for their budget, what everybody has in savings. But at the end of the day, this is not a fight with the schools. This is a fight for your safety and your lives and your kids' lives, right? And no other entity has another government entity come in and been involved or tried to sway one way or the other, right? 7 years, I've only been here just under 2 years, but in 7 years, nobody's come to the town and asked, hey, how's this going to affect you, or how's it going to affect Center Township? Other government entities in this county, because we're all affected by it. You saw the list on the slide before here. Everybody's affected by it. It's just what you do. If somebody makes a fire territory, another fire territory in this county, we all take a hit for that, right? Everybody in the county does. So it's just the way it works. You live within your means and you go forward. But the problem here is we need more money to give you the proper protection. So, Beth Cotton. Oh, I'm sorry. Betty Cotton. You're welcome.
Well, the orange gentleman stole a lot of my thunder, which is okay, but there's a couple. Can you hear me now? My husband's out there waving his arm. But one of the things I was concerned about was the discrepancy in the town's financial analysis and the school's financial analysis. $900,000 is a big discrepancy, and I hope there's going to be a little more thought given to that discrepancy. And the other thing that I think we're all are aware of was the governor campaign on property tax relief. And this is the budget year for the state. They're in the process of going through that process. They haven't passed the budget yet. So I was kind of wondering why we're doing this process before that's done. And also what happens if the town council votes no to the fire territory at this time? Can we circle back to it after we know what the state does with their budget? So there's a clear idea of what kind of monies are going to be coming in from the tax revenue in that regards. But those are the things, a couple things the gentleman didn't cover that I really wanted to bring up because it is a concern. And I understand we need fire protection. There's a lot of growth going on. There's a lot of subdivisions being built. So the town is really growing. So we definitely need the fire protection. And I understand that. And it's unfortunate that it's been not addressed before now, as you said. But I think that's something I'd like to see the town council give a lot of consideration to is exactly what do we do? And I know you, as you said, you have to live within your budget, which we all do. We're retired, so we're on limited income. So as we look at possible property taxes increase, maybe we've reached our limit. But there are those that haven't, and there are those that could be forced out of their homes. It's something to consider. So as I said, I'm concerned about the schools because we need good schools and want our kids educated. But we need to consider what the state's doing, and I just wondered why we were doing this now instead of waiting until after they had set the budget.
So the short answer to your question, why we're doing it now. So this started back in the fall with financial analysis. This isn't new. I want to say, Mark, were you at, I think 2008 when this came up the first time. It came up again in 2021. They only got halfway through the study and it was voted down by the town council. They didn't finish the study. But to answer your question, why now? We're bound by law. It has to be 3 meetings between January 1st and March 31st, with the 4th meeting being 10 days after this last meeting. But a decision has to be made before the 31st, because then it goes to the Department of Local Government. They approve it June or July-ish, and then it would take effect in January of 26. That's why it's. No, you're gonna start all over again next year, and the problem doesn't change, right? We're just talking more money, right? It's just gonna cost more money to do it again. And you know what? I encourage you to get on DLGF's website. I don't want to get too far into this, but I want you to look at where everybody has money, and then you can make up your own decision from that. Dave Brock.
All right, hi, my name is David Brock. I'm the president of Hendricks County Professional Firefighters, Local 4406. I represent the firefighters and paramedics here in Danville. Over the years, I've worked with multiple administrations, town manager, Chief Mark Morgan, he's the first chief I worked with, Chief Rob Roberts, and now Chief Rick Duncan. Throughout these eras, one problem has persisted throughout the time: finding proper funding to operate our fire department effectively, right? Historically, our administrations have tried to secure funds for both the township and the town, but the allocations have not been sufficient. Our fire department has continually been viewed as the secondary concern from the members. There's been a huge turnover as far as employees. You guys all know that, right? I mean, the average age in the department's fairly young. You know, and rather as treating the fire department as an essential part of our infrastructure, which it is, as the town grows, the new neighborhoods, businesses, expanded services, we need to look at public safety and firefighting as a backbone of the infrastructure, right? Today, our department's severely understaffed. You've heard that already. Grappling with retention issues, firefighters and civilian paramedics are not feeling prioritized, despite their vital role ensuring the safety and well-being of every citizen. Chief Duncan, he's a seasoned leader. He's got a long career in firefighting and administration. He understands that proper fire and emergency medical coverage is non-negotiable. That's why we're standing here today, talking about the territory. I'm urging the township and the town officials to support the formation of a fire territory. It's not just about funding. It's about recognizing the properly run fire department is as essential to our community's infrastructure as electricity, gas, and water services. We've expanded greatly in this town and township, right? We wouldn't imagine building new houses without electricity or water. But we need to think along that same manner when it comes to public safety, right? It is a part of the infrastructure. So, you know, I'm urging you guys to support the formation, and a vote against creating this fire territory on March 19th is a vote against maintaining our community safety infrastructure that supports growth, the lives of both our citizens and our first responders, right? It's that serious. If any official votes against the territory, you would be essentially voting against the safety and well-being of our community. It is that important. And I see you shaking your head no, Dee, but it is, okay? Heaven forbid something happen to a citizen on a run based on our average of 8-9 minute response time or a fire. The cameras are going to be here. They're going to ask why. Oh, they're going to ask why. And I'll tell them the truth. You know, March 19th that vote is going to dictate the safety of our members and the community.
Karen, Danville Public Library. You don't have to hurry, it's okay.
My name's Karen Milliken, and I'm the director of the Danville Center Township Public Library. And so we are also a taxing entity that covers both Center Township and the town of Danville. And unfortunately, I just found out that this was happening. It will affect our budget also. And as soon as I did, I contacted the DLGF. And what I'd like people to consider is, as Ms. Clark said, we are in a budget time. For the past 4 years, our budget has been capped at a maximum growth of 4%. So our budget in no way has kept up with the growth of Hendricks County and Danville. Unfortunately, they're looking at continuing to cap our budget. And if the fire territory passes, that will decrease the growth of my budget and the money that is allocated to the library. I fully understand that we need safety and health and safety entities, and that the fire territory is important. But I'm very shaky. Just having found out about this, I have no recourse to try to hurry up and fix my budget and find that extra money somewhere. So I'm also looking at laying people off, closing, decreasing the hours the library is open, because again, our budgets are not matching the growth of the town and the township. And I would just like to be considered as a taxing entity when these discussions are happening, because it fully affects us. Thank you.
Karen, before you leave, you said you're gonna lay people off and do things. Are those, so you've run a budget analysis and you know for a fact you're laying people off?
Yes.
And how much difference is your budget decrease? Because we got the numbers right here. So.
Well, so I called my DLGF representative, and he predicts that if this happens, because one of the things we don't know is, are they going to continue to cap our budget growth at 4%, right? So if I only get 4%, that puts about $40,000 into my budget, which does not match inflation or anything. So right now, we can't provide benefits for any of our people. I'm working on to keep the library open. We have about 15 employees. I'll probably be going down to 10. And then we'll have to look at whether or not we can stay open. So he didn't have the exact numbers for me, but he predicted about a 3 to 4% decrease in my budget.
Just for a point of reference, we're all capped at 4%, just so you know. So
That's
not to dispute you, but I like to know exactly that. And when you say you're gonna lay off 5 people, I want to know what that looks like. So if you and I could get together sometime before the 19th, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Albert, is it Doughty or Doherty? I'm not sure. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I'm Albert Dowdy, and I just have to make a few comments here. One is that I am not opposed to any fire department or anything happening with the fire department. What I am opposed to is the creation of a fire district. I do not want any kind of taxing authority made by decree. If you have a problem raising money, the problem should be focused on the city council, people who are financing this, and that they should be able to adjust the budget and change it, because these are the people who are up for re-election. They have to report to the taxpayers, to where when you form a district, the district is not subject to the same things as an elected official. And I just don't think that any district should be formed that does not benefit the taxpayers. And believe me, you people need more folks, you need more equipment, but you need to do it through the taxing authority of the city council and not create a district. I used to live in an area in which they wanted to create a hospital district. Okay? This was a long time ago. The local industries actually paid the cities not to establish a district, because once that district is formed and it becomes a taxing entity, all bets are off. I found out, since I no longer live there, that a district has been formed, but the local industries, the first thing that they do is they bulldoze down everything so that they're not having to pay taxes on it. Nothing is left standing as soon as it stops. Once again, all I have to say is the city council ought to be handling the financing on this. Go through them, but do not establish a district of any kind. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll touch on that quickly. I started the conversation today by making certain everybody understood a district is not at issue today, but you might be talking district or territory. And when I started doing a lot of this work 12, 15 years ago, I'd say territory when I meant district and say district when I meant territory. The district is when your commissioners impose a fire governing body upon, could be the township, could be the town, could be both, could be all of Western Hendricks, whatever they get a notion to do. And you would not vote for those trustees or those fire commissioners. They would be a separate taxing authority, and they would submit their budget to the council, the county council. This group, by the proposal they have in front of them, is the township would have elected representatives and appointed representatives on that board. The council would have elected and appointed representatives on their board and that they would send to this group. They would help the department devise a budget, and that budget could be thumbs up, thumbs down by that group. But then the town council has to include it in their overall budget. So there is not, this is still locally overseen, locally controlled, but not done by a group that's not accountable every 4th November. So you would still have the opportunity to participate in either the township budget process, you come to public meetings for the territory budget process, or go to the council during their budget process. Those are always open and available for people to attend, sir.
Danny Brown.
I'm going to choose not to use the mic if that's okay. Is it turned off already? You already have it. I turned it off. Okay. The biggest thing I want to come up here for, Fire Chief, Washington Township, Avon Fire Department. As you look at our departments in the county, I want to tell you that Pittsburgh, who's a fire territory, they've gone up since 2000, 126% in their run volume. Danville's gone up 108% in their run volume. Brownsburg, who's a fire territory, has gone up 125% in their run volume. That's from 2000 till now. Avon, we've gone up 286% in our run volume. You probably know that by driving down 36. Plainfield has gone up 185% in their run volume. What does that mean? The city's found its way coming west, and it's through down 36, right through Avon to here. It's very convenient. They're not going down 74. They're kind of starting to go down 70, but West Washington Street's not very conducive to travel. They're coming right down 36. The growth is coming. The neighborhoods are coming. Most of you already know that. They're already planned. The infrastructure is coming, and some of it's already here. The school's growing. They're building. They're building athletic facilities, classrooms. You got to protect them. We have to protect them in Avon. But while I'm trying to protect them in Avon, I'm spending last year 554 mutual aid runs out here. 25% of your run volume is being supplemented by your next door neighbor. We're being responsible. I max rated our Cume fund. We're doing levy appeals. We're doing look backs for assessed values. We're looking for areas to find revenues to provide growth. For our department, we're building our 5th station. We're remodeling the old stations because we have to provide an appropriate means for deployment of forces. That's expected by the community. It's expected by anybody who dials 911. You trust us with your lives when you dial 911. You trust us with your property when you dial 911. You might want to trust the words of your public safety representatives up here. And I say that because when I look at that mutual aid, the 554 runs, I'm not mad at Rick and Alex about that. I appreciate them. We communicate regularly. Sometimes I need their help because I shut down Station 3 while we remodel it. Puts a little burden on you. But what he's done with being understaffed is knock that 554 runs down to 431. About a 6% decrease in mutual aid from us to you with your limited resources. They're appropriately managing what they have, but at some point that management is limited by resources. Those resources have to come from somewhere. Whether they come from a territory, they come from levy appeals, they come from doing lookbacks and doing assessed value reassessments, it's going to have a tax impact. It doesn't matter how you skin it. And that tax impact is coming from a pie that's only so big. That's all I ask is that you listen to them, you take heed, and know that no matter what option you want to put on the table, there's going to be an impact, and we've already lived through it anyway.
Thanks, Chief. Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Chief. And I spoke at the previous hearing, and we'll try to be brief here this evening. And on behalf of the school corporation, we want to be team players in the process. As I mentioned at the previous meeting, we're not opposed to the concept of fire territory. And we're open to finding a long-term solution to fire protection and the circuit breaker distribution among units, which is the difficult part to work through right now. But there are some things we feel like that we need to know, and that first is to be realistic about the impact of the overlapping units and really understand that and understand what's going to happen. Along with that, we also need to better understand the lit amounts and the distribution of that, how that will work. We need to know the impact of legislation that some of you talked about in current Senate Bill 1 as amended and House Bill 1001. I spent all afternoon at the State House today, and I testified on Senate Bill 1. And what I know from the LSA, Legislative Services Agency's run on the amended version of Senate Bill 1, that in that, as it's written, Center Township will lose $430,000 over the biennial budget from what you have now. The town will lose $1.06 million in your biennial budget moving forward from what you have now. The school district will lose $1.4 million in the biennial budget from what we are taking in now in our operations fund. That's as it's amended right now. That was not the original version. In the original version, none of us will be operating. Those are highly potential losses. I'm telling you, from the 10 there today, we had 41 people testifying on that bill from various groups. And that combined in our case here with the overlapping units, and that's not the fire department's fault, it's not anybody's fault. But the combined potential of a $1.3 million loss, if we bring the fire territory in, along with a $1.4 million loss through legislation, that's 65% of our net levy in operations right now for the school district. And it's 34% of our operational budget overall. And so we need to figure out how that's going to work first in terms of the legislative part, in addition to a few of the remaining pieces here as we look at the fire territory. Again, we're open to long-term solutions. We firmly believe it needs the appropriate time and the appropriate study to get us where we need to get. This issue with the overlapping units is going to continue to get worse as more people hit circuit breaker over time. It's not going away. It'll get worse instead of getting better. So we do have to figure out how to make that mutually work for all the overlapping units. And I know we need to do that. That's important for fire protection. It's important for our community, it's important for the school district, and certainly important for the fire department. So we get that and understand it. I think it just needs a little bit more time, and we need to know what's going to happen in this legislative session before we, I think, get to a final conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schaefer. Justin Dorsey.
Thank you. I had a couple questions for the consulting person here. The chart you showed there showed that a large percentage, all the houses over $250,000 in the town of Danville are currently at the cap. Is that correct? And I got some information that said that that was actually about 89% of the current residents in the town of Danville. Is that a correct statement too that I've been told?
I don't have an exact number on that, but I don't believe it's that high.
The other concern that I have is the disparity in the two consultants that we've hired, both you. And I spoke with our representative who's on the Ways and Means, who kind of writes the rule, Jeff Thompson, most of you know, and he assured me that the school's estimate is closer to correct, that the school will in fact lose more than $1 million in funding if this fire territory is passed. And as much as I appreciate the service and the need for protection, there's 2,600 students in Danville schools that will lack services. There'll also be teachers and support staff that will be affected, as well as the library. We were assured by this town board 4 or 5 years ago that the additional homes that they approved would more than support the addition of the school, the addition of the fire protection and the police. We've seen those homes being built, but the folks that own a home in Danville and may have lived here for 30, 40 years that is under $250,000, who may be the lower income, are going to pay the most additional tax if this is approved. And I would say that we should figure out a better plan within the limits of the budget that we've established. And we have to grow into it, is what I've heard it said many times. Wait till these AVs come online. But I personally have been involved in a couple transactions in the last 6 months where the properties that were sold more than 10% below the assessed value of the property. These are older homes because people can't afford to live in their homes at that cost. And I just think we need to consider that a vote for this is a vote for a double-digit tax increase, and that it will have an impact that will affect thousands of families when these costs and these services at our schools go up.
Two things. I'm not sure how a representative who can't see a formula or numbers can come up with the same conclusion without having formula or numbers, but I can't even figure it out because I don't have the information. So, and to tell you, the maximum amount anyone would pay as a resident is $118.69 a year. $118.69 a year. That's less than a trip to the grocery store.
Well, I would challenge that, honestly. Now that may be working off of once again, your formula, but I can guarantee you that businesses, I mean, you don't have to drive far around Danville and see a lot of vacant buildings. And that 3% is an impact on those businesses. We would all like to see a vibrant downtown, and we'd like to see businesses come here, but this tax burden is a piece of this puzzle, and we cannot deny that.
Thank you. Again, I yield all that. If you have more questions afterwards, Reedy is here. Dr. Shaker, And Dr. Shaver's here, his CFO is here. If you want to talk to them, finance numbers. I'm not a finance person, right? I did okay in high school, but that's why we pay people a lot of money who do this for a living and do it over and over and over again. So feel free, raise your hand, guys, Reedy. And then, of course, Dr. Schaefer and his CFO is sitting one seat away from him if you want more numbers from them. But unfortunately, we're definitely out of time. And I appreciate everyone coming. And again, if you want to write down my phone number, 317-745-4180, extension 9001. If you can't remember the extension, just call the town hall, listen for the prompts, you'll get to me. Again, I will make time in my schedule, take you to coffee, you can sit in the office, I'll give you all the numbers, show you where money is, and we can go from there. So again, I appreciate you coming out. Thank you for your time. March 19th, 5:30, Town Council.